So we're looking at a book that took 9 years to write. And so it takes passion to get through that, and it definitely has something that you wanted to get told. So tell me a little bit about the book and why it was important for you to get it out.
I had started writing it as an article, and I was editor of Gambit newspaper, which is the weekly newspaper in New Orleans. And I knew that George Harriman was considered this great cartoonist, that maybe not everyone knows his name, but a huge influence on Peanuts, on Disney, on Calvin and Hobbes. Really, so many of the strips today owe a big debt to Crazy Cat, Harriman's comic. But he was from New Orleans, and I knew there were really interesting stories about his life in New Orleans. He was born to a free people of color family, so he was a mixed-race individual that when he was 10 years old, he went to Los Angeles, passed as a white man, and then brought that amazing history into the comics. So I wanted to write about that. And then I was in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina and went to a show in Milwaukee during that time. And it was Harriman's original Crazy Cat. His original art was up on the museum wall at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And I was bringing my son along and walking around and reading them aloud to him. And Miles, my son, was laughing at the comics. And I realized just looking at that work, I wanted to know his full story. So set out to try to uncover it and to write about it.
What do you think is the major revelation that you had by looking at his work, if you could sum that up?
The major revelation was how much he could bring into a 6-panel or 8-panel comic that went in the pages of the newspapers, of William Hearst papers, popular medium, but yet he was able to bring in all of his ideas, all of his personal experiences, and turn them into something funny and revelatory and beautiful and uncompromising. As an artist, he never seemed to try to limit what he was doing. He was always trying to add more into the work, and I find that inspiring. By the way, I should mention, one of his good friends was raised right over here on Broadway in Alexandria. Cliff Starrett, another great comic artist of that time, did a comic called Polly and Her Pals, and he was raised by his family right across the street from Cherry Street Books, right on Broadway here.